Ladies and gentlemen, welcome into my official and full dissection of all the New Year's 6 games. Guys, I'm going to spend about 2 minutes on each of these games talking about them, and then we do have the smart money bets just on the New Year's 6 games, along with a few other games that are happening kind of January 1st, the Citrus Bowl, things like that. We're also going to talk about those games, but this is my full breakdown on the bigger bowl games as we inch closer to these actually taking place at the end of the year and as we beckon in the new year. So the first game, this is, I believe, the Friday night game or like the night game before all the other ones. It's Clemson, it's Tennessee. Tennessee without their 2 top receivers, without Hendon Hooker. The line right now, Clemson minus 6.5. It's basically been stagnant, sitting at 6.5, the over-under, I believe, well into the 60s. So, guys, when it comes to Tennessee and Clemson, a lot of this is projection because we haven't seen a ton of Joe Milton. He did start against Vanderbilt on the road, and they won that game 56-0, but I would really take it with a grain of salt. Clemson, on the other hand, coming off that blowout victory in the ACC championship game over North Carolina. They are dealing with a few opt-outs in terms of their defense. We know DJ Uiagalelei, obviously not their quarterback anymore. They've got a true freshman superstar QB who they are rolling with. And guys, when it comes to this game overall, even with the backup quarterback for Tennessee, 6.5 is just too much for me. I like Clemson to win this game, but it's going to be a higher scoring game because Tennessee's defense is bad. It's going to be close, but this is one of those games where we are trying to weed through a lot of unknowns with the opt-out situation surrounding Tennessee's receivers, with Hendon Hooker being out, with the opt-out situation surrounding Clemson, a few of Clemson's defensive players. So we're trying to weed through some things. But in terms of overall value, I would say I find Tennessee plus 6.5, even without all their, star players. They have some decent value here. It's just too much. I think Clemson wins this game. I'd be very surprised if they lost it outright. I think, if you want to do a money line parlay involving Clemson, that would be fine. Minus 6.5. I just don't see the overall value to bet on it. So I will take them to win 34-31 in that game. This is just the game I wanted to quickly predict. It's pretty funny. It is Iowa versus Kentucky. So Will Levis is out for this game. Iowa does not have an offense. Kentucky, without Will Levis, does not have an offense. They both have really good defenses. The over-under, I checked it this morning. It is at 31. And Will Levis being out has completely flipped this line. Kentucky was 2.5-point favorites. Now Iowa is minus 2.5. And guys, listen, if you want to have some fun with it, take the under 31. I would not advise of it, but it'd be funny. The issue with taking the under 31, really any touchdown is a problem because it's such a small number. Like if you get a defensive touchdown, you get a turnover, it's tough. But guys, there's a reason this number is so low. It's because the offenses, especially Kentucky, without Will Levis, are so bad, and the defenses, especially Iowa's, are so good. Iowa ekes this out. I don't have a ton of confidence in it because I really don't know if their offense can generate 200 yards. I don't know if either one of these offenses can generate 200 yards, so it should be a fun one. But I will take Iowa to win. This is bragging rights right here. This is Big Ten versus SEC. There are opt-outs, but still, there are bragging rights on the line. I'm going to go Iowa winning this game and the under hitting in that one. Now we've got the Sugar Bowl. So this game, if you guys remember the Sugar Bowl, they've moved it from 8 o'clock to noon, which is so smart. When it was at 8 o'clock after the Rose Bowl, or it might have been at 9 o'clock. I mean, they made it so late and it was so boring and nobody watched it because it was after the Rose Bowl. They've moved it up a day and they moved it back to noon. So it is Kansas State taking on Alabama. I just love that, Bryce Young is playing, Will Anderson is playing. It's a shocking decision, and it really is great for college football. The one thing we pray is that, God forbid, if Bryce Young gets injured or if Will Anderson gets injured, guys, we're screwed. Because you know the narratives from ESPN, none of these kids, they would say kids should opt out once they enter their junior season, like Jamar Chase did during the pandemic year. That's what would be the narrative. The last thing we need, God forbid, we don't want any injuries, especially to Bryce Young or Will Anderson. Both of them are playing in this game. And it's so great for Alabama and their culture. Alabama sitting -6. This line was at 3.5, but once it was confirmed that they were playing, it got bumped up. But guys, the more I think about this game, I have to say I'm struggling, even with Bryce Young, to find Alabama scoring 37 points. They just have not shown enough. You know what? Maybe they did have a good Iron Bowl. They had a really good Iron Bowl on offense against Auburn. Kansas State is definitely better defensively than Auburn. But this is a game where I'm not finding a ton of value on Alabama -6. They just don't have the receivers this year. And now they've got several receivers in the portal. I don't know, guys. I'm really happy that Bryce Young is playing. I think Alabama wins this game. But Kansas State, they were my dark horse team to make a New Year's 6 bowl, and they totally reward me. They end up winning the Big 12. There certainly is a pretty, big talent disparity in this game. I could see Kansas State honestly getting... You know what, guys? This might be a surprising lower scoring game. I don't know. Kansas State's offense versus Alabama's defense. Alabama's going to have such a huge talent advantage, especially they've got Will Anderson playing in this game. But in general, I do like Alabama to win it. Don't have a great vibe on this one, but I'll take Alabama 37-30. Next, we have one of the two playoff games. It is going to be TCU and Michigan. And right now, Michigan's sitting -7.5. There's been big money placed on TCU. Michigan actually was 9.5-point favorites a week ago. The line's come down 2 full points. And I like TCU to really hang in there. And if there was one bet I would recommend making in this game, I would say take the first half under. Whatever the over-under is in the first half, I'd take the under. Both of these teams this year have typically started really slow. You could see a 10-6 type first half, maybe a 7-3 or something like that. I think it's going to be really low scoring early. It's also important to note this game is happening. It's a kickoff at 1 o'clock local time in Arizona. So it's early kickoff. There's going to be no vibe for this game. There's going to be no hype surrounding it. It's not the primetime game, it's the 4 o'clock game, which is 1 o'clock Pacific Coast time. So I like the under in the first half and probably the under overall in this game because the over-under's at 58.5. I think Michigan wins it. It would be very surprising if they didn't. To me, it definitely seems like the narrative is TCU is really, they've already achieved their goal. Nobody thought TCU was going to be here. Michigan, they were here last year. They got stomped. They're the favorites. They're a no-nonsense type football team. They're a team that really is not going to get upset. They're not going to beat themselves. And they're only going to get more healthy. Donovan Edwards getting more healthy. Obviously, Blake Corum is out. But still, this Michigan team, to me, more talent than TCU. They're not going to beat themselves. They're really well coached. They get it done on the neutral site in Arizona. And they also should have the, fan base advantage slightly. Arizona's definitely closer to where TCU is, but Michigan has a much bigger alum base, so they should have that advantage there. Next, we have the other semifinal game. It is the Peach Bowl. It's Ohio State and Georgia. Right now, Georgia, 6.5-point favorites. This line has been yo-yoing. It's mainly been at 6.5, but it has gone up to Georgia -7. And guys, when it comes to this game, I just think it's a situation where Ohio State and really CJ Stroud get it done against a bad secondary. It's important. I understand people have really criticized CJ Stroud for being soft, but you have to realize when CJ Stroud is on and he gets time in the pocket, he will destroy your defense. You have to realize that. Now, I know it's one-dimensional. He can't run. I get all that. But Georgia giving up the 500 passing yards to LSU, it's a real bad sign. This is CJ Stroud versus Stetson Bennett. I'll take CJ Stroud. I understand Georgia. They keep talking about Jalen Carter. Guys,
Listen, I know Jalen Carter is going to be a top 5 pick, whatever. It's very hard for me to feel threatened by someone that has 3 sacks on the year. I'm sorry, it is. I'm sorry. I know he affects other parts of the game and things like that. My guess is Ryan Day comes out, takes a page from Nick Saban's playbook last year in the SEC championship game when Georgia had all those great defensive linemen, and you play quick early on and you really tire them out. Take away their entire defensive line by playing fast, keep them on the field, no substitutions, score a few touchdowns, and make Stetson Bennett play from behind. Of course, for Georgia, they do have a really good offense just in general. They don't really have a superstar running back, but they've got Brock Bowers. We understand that he is an absolute beast, one of, if not the best tight ends in college football. He's going to get his. He'll probably score a touchdown. He's a matchup nightmare for anyone, especially on the Ohio State defense. But in general, I think Ohio State, there's an equilibrium, guys, when it comes to college football, and it feels like Georgia is due for a loss, especially after winning the national title last year, and Ohio State is really overdue. Let's be honest. To win a national title. It's pretty surprising. They've only won 2 in their last 50 seasons. So it feels like Ohio State, based on the success, they're due for a national title this year. Georgia, they just won. It's so hard to repeat. And it's a quarterback mismatch, C.J. Stroud versus Stetson Bennett. C.J. Stroud's going to get enough time. I know people say he's soft, but if you give him time, he will destroy your defense. Trust me on that. They do have the receivers, even without JSN. Trevion Henderson is also out in this game. Ohio State does have the offensive talent to win this game. I think they get it done in a surprising upset. And Ohio State plus 6.5. I mean, according to a lot of people, you talk to the experts, they are great value there. Next, we have Mississippi State and Illinois. So this game, very, unfortunate situation. I thought there was a chance that Mississippi State might not even play it, considering what happened with Virginia not playing their last 2 games, but they are playing. It's very hard to predict this game. We don't know the motivation levels. I know there's some players that have entered the transfer portal for Mississippi State. I had Illinois winning, before, right when the bowl predictions came out or the bowls came out. So I'm going to stick with it. I got Illinois winning this game 27-20. That is a noon game there. The Citrus Bowl, Purdue versus LSU. So Purdue loses Jeff Brom. Purdue loses Aiden O'Connell. And now the spread is up to 14 for LSU. And guys, I think they cover it. Purdue is just not going to score. They're just really not. It's going to get real ugly because they have so many opt-outs. They lost their head coach. And really the only reason they're in this good of a bowl is because of the Big Ten West being as bad as it is. So I will take LSU. I'm a little bit wary of LSU scoring 35 points. I don't know if they'll get that high. But their offense did show some things, and really they should have really no opt-outs on offense. Keyshawn Butte, I think, is actually coming back to LSU next year, so he should be playing in this game, you would think, and they win this game fairly easily. We've got the Cotton Bowl, Tulane versus USC. So this is one I've really gone back and forth on. Originally, I had Tulane. Then I had USC. Then I had Tulane again. And guys, I actually am back on USC winning this game 30-27. I just think it's a talent thing. And also USC understands program momentum. Lincoln Riley is really going to want to win this game and go into the recruiting offseason with significant momentum, especially after their loss to Utah. They want to get it back. Caleb Williams has some momentum winning the Heisman. He's the most talented player on the field in this game. I know Tulane is going to play hard. They're going to play good. USC's only sitting at 2-point favorites right now. So I'll take USC to win, but it's going to be a very close game, and I do like the under 63. We will have more on that in a second. And then the final New Year's 6 game, it's Utah versus Penn State. Guys, Penn State, unfortunately, losing Joey Porter Jr., opting out. I just think there's no way Utah loses back-to-back Rose Bowls. I know that's kind of a dumb narrative, but that's just my opinion. Utah wins this game. It's a fun game. I got to pick the over because it's the Rose Bowl, and we've had so many good Rose Bowls recently. Both of these teams are top 10 teams. I don't care what you say. You look at any metric, both of them are really good. Penn State, I will be honest, Penn State really didn't beat anyone.
when it comes to their best win in the regular season, but they're still a really good team. They only lost to Michigan and Ohio State, and they were beating Ohio State well into the fourth quarter of that game. And then Utah, they suffered a few really tough losses. The week 1 loss especially. They are a really, really solid team, and they certainly deserve to be here. This should be a really good game when it comes to the overall Rose Bowl. Again, I will take Utah not losing back-to-back Rose Bowls there. And then when it comes to the smart money bets, these are just the bets that the professionals are making right now, where a lot of the money is going on to these certain bets. So Alabama -6 versus Kansas State. I think it's mainly due to the whole Bryce Young playing, Will Anderson playing, and the talent disparity between both of those programs overall. Also, the game is in a dome, so that's where talent kind of shines even more. There's no elements to deal with. Iowa -2.5 versus Kentucky. It's risky, but I understand it. I mean, Kentucky with their backup quarterback, they really didn't have that good of an offense with Will Levis. So you go to their backup quarterback against a really elite Iowa defense. Kentucky's going to have huge issues scoring in that game. TCU versus Michigan, the under 58.5. It's understandable. And if the under hits, I'm guessing it would be really due to Michigan's defense shutting down TCU's offense. Michigan has a very balanced, defense that doesn't give up explosive plays. So they're going to make TCU string together drives, which could be very, very hard for TCU, converting multiple third downs on every drive. They like the under 58.5 in that one. LSU -14 versus Purdue. It's understandable. I mean, it's just everything is going against Purdue right now. Their head coach is gone. Their quarterback's not playing. They really shouldn't be in this bowl anyways because the Big Ten West is so bad. That's the only reason they get the citrus invite as the loser of the Big Ten championship. It's understandable. LSU opened this game -7. Or like -6, I think. Could you imagine if you have LSU -6 for like $1,000? You're already counting your win. Imagine they lose. But no, that is great value there. And then Tulane versus USC. The under 63 on that one. I think that's the final smart money bet for the New Year's 6 games here. It does make sense. 63 is a relatively big number. I don't know if Jordan Addison is playing in this game. I would guess he's not, just based off the overall trends of everything and kind of how players are. But I don't know, because Bryce Young, Will Anderson are playing, who knows. But the professionals are taking the under 63. And I'll be honest, when this line first came out, I thought it was really high. Like, you see a 30-27 type game, that's 57 total points, that's easily the under hitting. It just feels like, 70% of the time, this game goes under 63 in general. So that's where the value would be, in my opinion. But guys, that's going to do it for this video. My official New Year's 6th in-depth predictions. Make sure you follow me on Twitter. Link to that's always in the description.